this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to my first bonsai repot of 2025. I'll turn the camera around, we'll do the camera position over my shoulder again. That seemed to have been appreciated in the last video, the first video of 2025. There's a lot of firsts going on, isn't there? Anyway, let's twist the camera around and drop it down so that hopefully you can see what's going on, and then we'll zoom in a bit, something like that. Actually, I need to go a bit lower because I want to just, for those that are relatively new to the game, the tools of the trade, or my tools of the trade. Others may have different tools and different numbers of them. I've got a pot that I'm going to use that came out of the shed, never been used, that was bought a while ago. This is suitable for it. These are my root shears. They have a shield on them because they are very sharp. The points are, you can catch your hand on them, so that's actually that. These have got a lot of leverage and they are specifically for cutting roots. So I don't use them for pruning twigs or anything else, they only get used for roots. The reason they're saved for the roots is that when you're pruning roots, there's often grit and all sorts of things in the media that will mess up my posh scissors. These are my twig cutting scissors. I use them for root pruning on my orchids because orchid roots are soft. But I don't get these anywhere near bonsai media because it's got grit in it and it could damage the delicate blades and points. I have a root rake. This is good for getting stuff off the top of pots like moss. It's also good for straightening out roots and untangling them. It's a root hook. This is good for really getting in and getting, really getting to grips with larger tangled roots. And then I've got my wire cutters, which we will need. I've got my mesh, which we use to cover up the holes in the pots so that all the media doesn't fall out, because drainage holes in bonsai pots are large, so all the media would fall out. And to hold that in place, we use some wire with some little butterfly clips that I will make, and then to hold the bonsai in the pot we also use some wire through those holes. So this is what we're repotting. This is a Trident maple. This was air layered last year and was successful, and it has actually grown quite a bit, which implies to me that it's now got a reasonable root system that we can work with. Let's turn the camera around a bit now and come back out that way there so we can sort of see what's going on. There we go. So this was an air layer. At some point the main trunk had been chopped and a suitable leader was selected, which has also had a chop, so there's a bit of shaping been going on. It's grown a lot of twigs and some of these side branches are not wanted, but I won't be doing too much hacking on the branches. I'm hoping I've got a good root system, but I need that root system to be better and I need this tree to start thickening up. So I won't be cutting too much of the potential foliage off. It's just on leaf break now. Perfect time to repot, Leaves are just starting. So what happens with trees is that deciduous trees in the autumn, the leaves change from a nice green into yellows and golds and bronzes and reds and oranges, and that's where they reabsorb all of the chlorophyll and sugars and energy from the leaves, and they take that lot down into the base of the tree. In the spring, when it's time to grow, all of that energy makes its way up the trunk and out into the branches to push the leaves out. That leaves a bit of an energy deficit because all the energy is now up in the tree and there isn't much left at the bottom of the tree. And there's a gap. So all of the energies come up out of the roots. So it's a good time to play with the roots because they're not doing much. Yeah, they will supply hydration, hopefully, but the energy can't be produced until the leaves start to photosynthesize again, and they don't do that until they're fully open. So juvenile leaves that have only just opened don't actually photosynthesize. So it's up to you to supply any energy reserves that have been lost through pushing those leaves out in the first place. Now this should just lift out. Oh, it's a lovely root system. Well pleased with that. Right, let's just get that out of the way for a minute. So we get all the debris off the top of the pot. Now the only thing, something I've never done before because I've never successfully air layered anything, the air layer was a ball of sphagnum moss wrapped in polythene and wired onto the branch, having removed a section of the bark. That's how you air layer. And it was potted up with that moss intact, because to try and remove it could have damaged what are incredibly fragile roots at that stage. So the moss is still there. We may make an effort to try and get it out. We shall see. But we have got some good roots here, I'm well pleased. So we will gently start teasing. A nice lot of grit in this. There's some very fine feeder roots here, so I'm pleased with that. And now we're getting into where the moss originally was. So that's good. So I'm hoping to remove that moss because it's not doing any good anymore. It's in the middle of the root ball. And there's not much goes on at the base of the tree. The feeder roots are the fine extensions, and the anchoring roots are the thicker, woody, more woody ones, which we haven't got yet. It hasn't got to the stage where we've got those woody roots, but we have got some immature woody roots starting here, the whiter ones, but we've got lots of feeder roots which should enable this tree to grow on at quite a good rate. Now I'm not going to try and get every single bit of the old media off because it's not that old. This was potted up last year, so it's not like the media's, you know, completely gone. It's not much wrong with it, in fact. I just wanted to get it in a bonsai pot so that I feel better about it, and to me it feels more like a bonsai. Now this was buried in the media, and there's actually more of the trunk which I'm just trying to reveal to get down to the base of the first of the woody roots, which is this one. And that is a big strong root, given that that can only have grown from the air layer. There weren't any roots, and now there are some. So we've actually got some quite sturdy roots at the base here. Pleased. So we'll try and tease as much away from the trunk as we can, because this little bit at the base of the trunk is actually part of the shape of the tree. Might not seem much, but it is. I'm getting to where the moss is now. So there's some quite large roots in here. I wasn't expecting that, I must admit. But we will get worst of this moss out. The trouble is the moss holds an awful lot of moisture, and my trees aren't protected. They live out, you know, in the garden. They get rained on, and obviously too much rain could rot the base of the tree because the moss would hold so much. So that's got rid of the worst of it. This is the base of here, like this. Got a nice thick root there, another one here, and if you look now at what will be the new soil level, we've actually got quite a nice base to the trunk starting already, out here and out here. Yeah, so, and some quite thick, fleshy, woody roots. Now that I wasn't expecting to see, I must admit. Anyway, we do have a good root system. We've got feeder roots, anchoring roots, and plenty to work with. So you're going to wonder why the hell I'm going to cut half of them off now. When you've got roots on a tree, everywhere that a root is broken is the equivalent of coming up against a rock or a stone or something hard, at which point the root is highly likely to branch and go round. Cutting achieves the same thing, so you end up with more roots by trimming. And it's part of what bonsai is all about, is actually trimming, root trimming, to actually get a much more dense, thick, good set of roots that feed the tree, which is essential if you think about what a bonsai tree is. It's in a tiny little pot, yeah? So without a really good root system relative to the size of the tree, it's not going to be able to support itself very well. So getting the branching roots is essential. Right, now there's a base to this here that I actually want to cut off. Unfortunately, I haven't got anything out here to do it. So first job then is to give these roots a trim. When it goes in its pot, they will be laid out flat. So any thick roots that stick down will hold the tree up out of the pot. So they, you know, they're going to have to come off unless I can bend them round, like that one I can. So I can bend that one underneath the tree. This one's okay because it's high, but anything down here will have to come off. So we'll get my root shears designed for the job, and we'll trim these roots. The idea being that what's left is more than enough to look after the tree and will allow the plant to get down into the pot. And where these roots have been trimmed, they will be on some nice new media, so they will get going nice and quickly. That's going to go up under there, so that's probably all I need to take off now. And then we'll just fan it out when we get it in the pot. Right, I need to chop that off, otherwise it's not going to go down in the pot very well. So I'm going to have to go and get my secateurs, something with a bit of oomph, because I haven't got anything remotely strong enough to cut that. I really would like to take that woody root off, but unfortunately it's actually got an awful lot of real roots attached to it. So I'll just pop in and get my secateurs to cut that thick bit. Let's try this then. This is a niggler. It takes little chunks out, little bites, like that, and that's doing the job. I can just niggle at it now. As I say, this just takes bites out, which is good. Get all these lower pieces off. See, there's a huge lump of wood here at the base of this tree that's got no roots coming out of it, and it will hold the tree up. It will stop the tree being able to get right down in the pot. So I am trying to get a fair bit of it off so that the tree will go down. Yeah, that's got it. There's a much flatter base to it now. I shall remember that that's the tool for hacking at the bottom of the tree for future reference. Now, one thing I will say, I've only been caught once, but when you're doing this and you've taken the media off of your roots, don't work in the sunshine, will you? Sun could dry those roots and frazzle them in minutes, and they will die. So if you have to work outside and it's a hot day and there is a likelihood of that happening, you need a sprayer. Or you need to dip them in water. Actually dunk them and keep them hydrated, but don't let them dry out. That can cause all sorts of problems. So I'm going to put that to one side. I'll shut the camera down now. I'm going to get rid of this and get some media sorted out, and then we'll come back and we'll do the put the mesh in the pot and get the plant set up in the pot and get it all potted up. But I need to have a tidy up first, so as I always say, I'll be back. Okay, first job then is to get the pot set up, and this is a bit of pre-loved wire that's been used for something before, but bits of wire that are this long I always keep. You know, I just wrap them round and put them in a pile, and then I can rummage through. Now these little butterflies are quite simple to do. You need a loop like that, and then you need another one like that, so that you get a pair. Yeah, and then you can just straighten them out a bit so that they look a bit neater and tidier. And the two ends don't need to be quite that long, but it doesn't matter how long they are because we're not going to see them. They're going to go inside the pot. Now some people do it the other way round. I do it this way. I never used to, but I do now. So basically we've got two legs and two little loops. Now what we need is a bit of the mesh, and that needs to be big enough to cover the hole, and that's all. It doesn't need to be massive. I might have to get some more of this. I haven't got that much, but then I haven't got a huge amount of repotting to do. So we need a piece big enough to cover the hole, like that, and as there's two, we'll need two bits like that. And then what we do, it's all carefully contrived. These two legs need to be the size of the hole, and then we push that up through there. Yeah. Put the mesh over there so these legs go up through the holes in the mesh, getting it nice and central if you can, choosing which holes are best so that it's like that. And then we just bend these legs over like that, and that's that, nice and firmly held. And underneath we've got some little loops tucked inside the legs so they don't hold the pot up, and there's no jagged edges underneath the pot. If you do it the other way round and you have the legs outside the pot, they've sometimes got pointy ends. Yeah, so I think it's nicer that way round. So again we make a loop. Very easy to get the length of this totally wrong. It just takes practice basically, and what you're aiming to do is get the gap between the legs roughly the size of the hole, and you can do that right at the beginning of the process basically. Come around there like that with that one, and that one comes up like that. And a bit of trimming. We made another one, just like Blue Peter. As I say, the length of these doesn't matter that much. The gap between them is probably more important. And then up through the hole with the two legs, like that. And then we put our bit of mesh over the top, like that. Get in there, and then bend those over nice and tight, press them down, and now the media can't fall out of the holes, and underneath we haven't got any jagged bits. You just flatten those off, make them look tidy. So that's that. That's not it. This is the bit that's easy to forget, because it's, you've got your tree there, you've got your media, which I haven't mixed up yet, I'll do that in a minute. And you want to get the tree in the pot, so you start putting the media in the pot, and then you realise you haven't put the wire in to hold the tree in the pot. You have to tip it all out again. I've never done that, of course, ever, never. And then what you do with this is you tuck this up through there like that, and then tuck that up through there. I'm going to need a bit more because I've only got one piece left out of that pre-loved piece of wire. The idea being that you get two pieces long enough to come back over the top of the tree, cross over and twist. to hold the tree in place. So that's what you're trying to get. And nice and flat on the bottom of the pot. Yeah? And then you can push that over to one side like that. And push that over to one side like that. And those will now cross over and twist and hold the tree in place. And with a tree like this, I could probably get away with just having 2, but I'd rather have 4. So we come at it from all sides, and it'll be nice and firm, and the wind can't blow it over. So the other piece that I'm going to put in there is, you've seen what I'm doing, yeah? So I'll break off again, and I'll come back when I've mixed up some media and explain what I've used and roughly how much of each. I don't do science, I just couple of handfuls of that, handful of that, but I'll tell you what I've done, and then we'll get the tree set up in the pot. So I'll be back. Right, I'm only mixing up enough for this pot. Now a lot of people would mix up a huge batch and store it ready for multiple repots. I've got this thing that I like to do each pot to the tree. Now the only thing I haven't got, which this tree might like, is some of the ericaceous type compost, because maples they're understory trees. They tend to grow on the forest floor with other deciduous trees above them in the main, so there'd be a lot of leaf litter around, which would make the soil a bit more acidic than perhaps normal. But I've done my maples in the past without that, and they've all done very well, so I don't bother, but you can if you want. So this is down here at the bottom. This is ordinary potting compost that you would buy to put in your hanging baskets or put in your tubs for your bedding plants. Yeah, so that's organic basically. And then to that I've added horticultural grit. That's this stuff. Yeah. This ought to be washed really, but the smaller bits that are in it are still grit. They're not tiny, so they will still provide aeration and drainage. And then on top of that I've added some small orchid bark. Yeah. Now I used I've got the mug out because I thought you might want to know the proportions. Normally I just chuck it in and mix it and think, yeah, that's about right. But there was 2 of those of the potting compost, and then 1.5 of the grit, the horticultural grit, and 1 of the bark. So that's the mix. So the mix is more organic than not, but there's a good percentage of grit in there. That helps drainage and everything, and the bark in there, because it's a solid material, even though it's organic, it will still help with aeration and drainage. And we just give that a good mix. And there's one thing I would recommend when you're mixing up your bonsai soil is think about where your tree's going to live before you do it. See, now a lot of purists, they'll be saying, you've got no macadamia. Well, no, I haven't. It's ridiculously expensive, and what do I get? I get baked clay particles that's absolutely brilliant for the roots, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking it, but it's ridiculously expensive. And in warmer weather, I'd have to water again on the same day as I watered in the morning, because it would be dry. And it's very easy to lose a root system in that stuff because it can dry so fast. Yeah. So I don't use it. I have a mix that is balanced. In the summertime, I can get away with not having to water every day with this type of mix because it's moisture retentive. But there's more than enough grit in there for it not to get into a soggy mass during the winter when we get a lot more rain. So it covers both of the issues for me. And I've been doing this as long as I've been growing bonsai. So the trees are okay. Some people say if you can't afford akadama, or you just don't want to pay the price because it's ridiculous, some say you can use kitty litter, which is just baked clay, but don't use the fragrant stuff. just the basic stuff. I'm sure it'll work. Quite honestly, you could as long as it's not toxic, I reckon you could probably grow bonsai in virtually anything. It's just a matter of how often you want to water, how much maintenance do you want to do. And I don't want to be tied to my trees. You know, if I go away for a couple of days, I don't want to come back to a load of dead ones because I've used something that doesn't hold much moisture. So that's my mix. And I'll tell you another thing that I've been caught out with many times, we might even get caught out again now, is when you mix up your media and you're doing it for one pot, mix up too much because you can almost guarantee it won't be enough. So overdo it rather than underdo it. If I've got any left over, I will bag it up and use it later. Now in here I have a thin layer of the horticultural grit. That's drainage. That will stop the mesh getting bunged up, yeah? And it will allow water to drain out easily, so it doesn't matter how much water gets chucked in the top of this pot, it can escape. So that's what that's for. And then we put some media on the bottom so that all of the roots that I'm now going to put in the pot have got some media underneath them. And what we do is we make a mound in the middle. You can't always do this, and it's not always necessary, and sometimes it doesn't work. But the idea is you now look at your pot. I tell you what, let's get the pot up in the air. How's that? I'll tell you what we could do. Go the whole hog and put it on the turntable as well, then we can twist it round. Save me doing it in a minute. Just make sure it's in the middle. Yeah, there we go. Right, so we've got media over the whole of the bottom of the pot, and we've got a mound in the middle ready to sit the plant on. Now it's quite important at this stage, if you plan on it being in the pot for some time, to get it in the right place now. Because otherwise, every time you look at it, you'll think, oh, that should have been a bit round there. So try and do it first time. Now, I don't know how long this is going to be in the pot, but this is the bit where you flatten the roots out, tease them towards the outside of the pot so that they grow away from the trunk. Yeah? And that will help with your nabari, the base. Nice big fat base at the base of the tree just makes it look older. And with bonsai, it's all about looking older than it actually is, you know. I mean, this tree's probably only 3 years old, maybe 4. You're trying to make it look 50 years old. No, it doesn't yet. So I've got my trunk coming towards me here. It's only a short bit, but that will get very fat, this area. That comes towards me, then it angles off and goes away, and then it comes back again. And that's what I was after. That's the initial shaping that I wanted to achieve. All right, now let's make sure that's going to be in deep enough, like that. Now I'm going to put a bit of media on, but not too much. Show you why in a minute. This is just to hold the thing still, so that I can let go, because I need 2 hands to do the next bit. So we put some media on. That tree should now stay still. And the next thing to do is cross these wires over. So pull that wire up and push it under there. The idea is to try and get it in such a place that it will go down into the media and not show. So we'll pull that there, pull that one in, and then just give it a twist to hold it in place. Yep. Then we take the ends off. Why do we take the ends off now? Well, you try twisting it with pliers with those long bits dangling out, because it don't work. So take the ends off, and then get your pliers, grab hold and twist and pull. Again, try not to break all your branches off while you're doing it. So you just pull and twist, and as you do, it tightens on the tree and holds it in place. Now, you're not trying to garrote all the roots off. It needs to be relatively firm. So when you feel it getting a bit tight, stop and see what you've got. Is that firm enough? No, but we haven't done the other two wires yet, so we're only pulling down on one side. So we'll now come over this side and cross over here. There's a nice big fat root there that I can lock onto. So we'll pull that, give it a twist. Trim the ends off. Get the pliers and pull and twist. Make sure you twist it the right way when you start with the pliers, otherwise you just undo it all. There's some words you can use if you do that. I can lend you some if you like. I've got plenty. Because the wires just go boing and come undone. So make sure you twist it the right way. Pull it all the time as you go. So you're tightening and twisting, pulling it in on the tree. And there's something you can do to make sure you've done enough. Oh, that's the cat wants to go out. He always knows when I'm filming. And yet he's deaf. So how does he know? Right, now we can come round and pull this one a bit tighter, because this one wasn't very tight, was it? So we'll twist that a bit tighter that way. And then the way you tell whether it's tight enough is to grab hold of the tree and lift it. Well, it stays in the pot, but I wouldn't say it's firm. It does still move a bit, but there weren't enough big wooden roots to actually grab onto much worse than that. So then just push those pointy ends down into the media. Yeah? And now we do the disappearing trick. Where's my, there it is. I use a chopstick. Anything pointed to do, a dibber, anything like that. But what you do now is you work this media in between all those little roots so that there are no air gaps at all. You're not actually pressing the media down, you're working it in. And like I say, this is like a magic trick, because when I've finished doing this, the pot will only be half full. Doesn't matter how much you put in, there's always room for some more. But I don't press mine down to any extent, I work it in. Just keep tapping away. And let that cat out, otherwise he won't shut up. Come on. Scoot. Nuisance. So how he knows I'm filming, I don't know, but every time. Guaranteed. Yep. So there was media underneath the roots. This activity just gets the media in between the roots. As I said, it's not being pressed down to any extent. Now we can get some more in. Not much more. And this is what I do. I press my thumbs down the outside at this point, and that tightens it all up. I'm not pressing the middle bits down. I don't want this compacted, otherwise when it's watered it will turn into a solid block of mud, which I don't want. I still want aeration. Right, now we can get some more in. There is a limit, obviously. And some of the more observant of you might have noticed that in my mug that I use to measure all of this, there's some more grit. But it's not the same as the grit we've just used. That is actually granite grit, and it's a lovely colour, and it makes for a very pleasant top dressing. And because it's got no organic media within it, it helps stop the weeds and the moss growing. Well, at least it does for a while. So that's why I brought that in. That was just the decorative stuff on the pot. And that just makes it look nice. Make sure that you've got a little bit of room left around the rim of the pot. because if you haven't, when you water it, all of that grit will just wash over the sides. So gently sloping up towards the base of the tree, like a mound, gentle in this case. And there we go. Now the only other thing I need to do is something you might not like, but that lowest branch down there is coming off. So I'm going to take that right off back to the trunk, like that. It's just not in the right place. Yeah. Now we will look and see what else needs to come off. That needs to come off. This is the first trimming this has had, really. Little one tucked in there that can come off. This probably won't be it. I'll probably take some more off as the season progresses. That little stump can come off, as can that one. We're okay here. Side branch, shorten that. And hopefully that will grow because the buds haven't started to break there. Probably keep that branch, probably keep that one. That's an inside curved branch, we don't want that. They don't look right. Say this is rough branch selection, and round here there's a cluster of branches. We don't want them all. We don't want sticking up ones. And that one's too long. As is that one. So that's that one. We'll leave that one for now. I don't like that stump on there. That's from a previous trimming, so we will take that off. About there, something like that. Just tidy that up. That's that one. The scissors gone there. And we've got another cluster here. When you get a lot of branches coming out of the same place, if you leave them, you will get a knot, you'll get a lump. And it never goes away, you can't get rid of it once you've got it, so it's better not to let it form in the first place. Now I've got to decide you know what I said about getting it in the right place? Well, it's not. That's my front view, and I've got it slightly offset. Well, as I said, it's not going to stay in this pot forever. Next time I repot it, I'll have trimmed, I'll have shaped, and I'll have something more like heading towards how I want the tree to be. When I get to that stage and it gets repotted, possibly into a bigger pot by then, that's when I'll possibly do its final position. So I'm not worried that it's slightly offset at the moment. Would have been better if it wasn't, but so these two branches here, I'm going to have to take both of those off, or we will get that knot effect. That's that. You're too long. Now, what have we got? We've got come off. Die back in the middle of that branch. Not going to do much more because I want to see what grows, and obviously I want the trunk to thicken, so some of this at the top is going to be sacrifice branches. They will just be allowed to go silly. They'll probably be 3 foot long by the end of the year, a metre long, because they will grow strong, and they will thicken up the trunk behind them and the lower branches, hopefully. So that's it for now. That's all I'm going to do. As I said, it's initial potting, not really styled yet, and may not be for some time yet. But first of all, we've got to get those roots to settle in and the plant to get going. So there we go, first one of the year, and this is its first time in a bonsai pot. most of the other repottings that I've got to do are actually, you know, changing pots or going into a bigger pot. So they've already been in a bonsai pot for a while. But this is effectively a new tree. I'm probably happy that that's, where's the camera? Probably happy that that will be its final shape, so that we've got the form. And then we'll get a nice branch here on that outside bend, one going off to the back. Hopefully at least these branches will thicken up, and hopefully that will grow a bit. Might be a bit too low down, that branch, but a lot of Trident maples that you see have actually got branches over most of the trunk. You know, they've got their dome and triangular shape, but they've got branches from quite low down, so I won't be doing anything dramatically different to what other people have done. Anyway, that's that, and yeah, plenty more of these, well, I say plenty more, there's quite a few more to do, but that's the first one that's come out of a flower pot. Are there any others? Yes, there's a juniper in a flower pot that needs doing. That's a big tree as well. And this air layer came off of a set of 3. Oh, hang on. You didn't really want to go out at all, did you? Nuisance. Yes, I've got this air layer came off of a set of 3 Trident maple that I bought in a flower pot a couple of years ago, and those 3, the plan from the guy I bought it from was to fuse them together, but they were in a line. They wouldn't have looked right, I don't think. They'd have done better as a triangle set of 3. But at the moment they don't look much, but they're in a flower pot. I want them out. But what I'll probably do with those is take them out of the pot they're in and pot them up individually. Probably. But all the other stuff is, you know, closer to what a bonsai perhaps ought to look like. So there we go, that's that one done, and thanks for dropping by. See you next time.